Right, so what I'm actually going to talk about is a little bit of our response, I guess, to thinking about the issues that Rob and Pete laid out before us in terms of where we need to go. And I'm going to try and break it, I guess, bundle it up into some simple actions that we can or are taking, and then I'll get to a couple of the other bits in terms of announcing Improved Tracker right at the end. But if I actually summarise what I heard from Pete and Rob's review in terms of what are the actionable things, there were really three key things that we took out of this, and these are the things that we took to our board and said, this is what the review has said, and here's how we want to action them. And you will, not surprisingly, have already heard these elements from Rob already this morning, because he talked about what the review said, so I'm really talking about what we've done as a result. But the three things really were clearly articulate the industry priorities and direction, develop capability, and unleash genomics. So I'm going to go through those three things first. And Rob's already talked about the benefits of having an industry that's pulling in the same direction. And so in terms of these priorities, they're not actually just genetics priorities, right? So these aren't just genetics team priorities, these are organisational priorities. And Alan has already showed you this morning the work that's been done within beef and lamb in terms of focusing up our efforts and starting to communicate some of those priorities. In terms of the genetics role in that, it's absolutely key that we do this, and that's really so that, you know, we can sit there as an organisation and say, well, we think we need to go that way, right? But a leader's only a leader if you've got followers for a start. But also, we're not even leaders, right? We have to have a role as facilitators and to recognise there's a lot of other people in this ecosystem that we are part of, which is the sheep industry and the genetic improvement that we're doing in the sheep industry, and that we all need to be pulling or focusing our efforts in aligned directions. And so that's an important thing that we need to do. It's an important thing that we need to do more of. I've put some logos down the bottom. They happen to be, I guess, the companies that probably we work with closest in terms of developing our genetic system. There are obviously a lot of other companies in the ecosystem that are involved in, you know, with the bureaus, extension, etc. And I'll touch on that in a minute. But in terms of articulating these priorities, we are discussing with these companies pretty regularly as to where we're going and what we're doing. And an example of this is that we'll talk about the Vision 35 program that we're pulling together that Alan talked about earlier. Biological Science Institute, formerly known as AgResearch, is actually contributing cash into that partnership, all right? And that's about aligned direction and about the fact that we both see the same directions and trying to make sure that all of our investment is pulling the same way. So that's a really important point. The second point was develop capability. And this is really the point about the ecosystem, right? So it's not just create another scientist or something like that, although that is really a very key part of it, as I'll get to in a minute. But it's actually develop all of us in terms of our knowledge, our understanding of genetics, our understanding of the opportunities, and I would say particularly our younger breeders or people that are just coming up into that phase of their career where they're going to start making breeding decisions. Also our not so young ones. But yeah, we all need to get this continuous professional development. There's a bunch of industry professionals. We all need to be bringing them along, developing capability. There's capability that we really rely on in information technology and systems. And one thing I've learned in the last 5 years is actually doing the genetics part of it is only a part of it. Moving data from your farm into a system, processing that data, and then getting good information back out to you that you can make good decisions on, all requires a lot of information technology and systems behind that. and so that's important too. And the science capability is really important. It's actually something I'm pretty passionate about personally, and maybe that's just because I'm getting old, but really trying to get the capability going and get our industry with the human capacity to be able to achieve the things in genetics that we want to. So creating professional development opportunities, like today, for example, which you probably didn't think you were coming to a professional development opportunity, but you are, to get together and to discuss with other people what genetics is doing. We need our undergrads to be exposed to genetics right from the word go, right? And so we're working with the universities in various capacities, and sometimes they'll invite some of our staff to come in and give them lectures, guest lectures about how genetics is being applied in the industry. And it's not just us, right? So I know Sarah's been to Lincoln to do one or two of those. I've been to Lincoln to do one or the two of those. Staff from BSI and Ag Research, or from Invermain Ag Research, go to Otago and teach some of their courses. And we've got a really strong relationship with Massey as well. So these things are all important. But actually, it's not just about the people who are doing academic studies, right? It's about the wider community. And so one of the things that we've done today is we had this idea. We thought, we'll put out a scholarship and get one or two young people along to learn and to absorb this environment, right, and to meet all of you. We got 25 or so really good applications from people, and they were too good and I'm too soft-hearted to say no to 25 people, right? Or to say no to 23 people and pick two. So actually we went and found some more budget. And I think we've got 18 or 20 or something like that along here today. And thank you for the applause, because I really think it's something that we really need to do more of. And now I'm going to make all those people who we've supported stand up. You've got to do something, right? And so stay standing up for a minute so people can work out who you are. Of everyone that's sitting down in the audience, who is too scared to go and talk to one of those people today? No one is, right? Great. So I want all of you to go, before you go home at the end of the day, you have to have gone and talked to at least two of these people, all right? And engage with them and had some meaningful conversation. Because actually, for these young people, there's a lot of the first time you're into this sort of environment, right? It's a little bit daunting. It's a little bit scary. It's much easier for us to go up and talk to them than it is for them to come up and talk to us, because we're old and scary, right? So, and I'm serious about this. I really want everyone in the audience to make sure you've talked to at least two of these young people before you go home. Righto. So take a scan of their faces and you can sit down there. I guess the other point I'd make, right, is that developing capability is not just the beef and lamb responsibility. We definitely need to do our part as the industry body, but we actually all need to invest in the future. So if you've got a shepherd who's interested in genetics, make the investment to bring them along next time rather than leave them to crutch lambs while you're away, because you get a whole lot more value from them by bringing them here for a day to learn than you will to get another couple of hundred lambs crushed. And actually you're going to develop an engaged young person who's going to be more interested in your business, going to be more into the genetics. So I guess the point I'm making is, we all have that responsibility, and yes, it might cost us a little bit of money at times, and I know a lot of that is happening out there, but yeah, really make the effort, because other than the young people that we've sponsored to come along, not too many 20, 22-year-olds get the opportunity to come here, right? Most of the time they get left at home. So please make the effort to co-invest with us, and really develop our industry. And as you can see, this is something I do strongly believe in. So we are investing, and these aren't the only examples, but I'm going to put three people up here. I've got their permission, right? I probably am embarrassing them, but at least I have their permission to embarrass them, as people who are investing in what I would call next-gen capability and sort of with a bit more of a science flavour, right? So our very own Katie Clark, who works as part of our genetics team, she's currently doing a master's at Massey to upskill and to deepen her knowledge of genetics. She would tell me that she's bitten off more than she can chew right now, and I knew she was, but she's going to get there. And so, yeah, Katie. Corey, who you can see in the middle there, just graduated a couple of weeks ago with her undergrad honours in genetics from Lincoln, and she's been funded into, not by us, by the Agricultural Mission Centre, but funded into a Massey PhD program. So she's working with Nick Sneddon, and actually all these three young ladies are working with Nick at Massey. And Jess Smith, Jess was a Otago graduate in genetics, came to talk to me, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years ago, Jess, wherever you are, and sort of wanted to know about career pathways in genetics. She went and did, I think, an internship in LIC or something like that, but then we got her back from the dark side. And we provided some data and a little bit of support, financial support, for Jess to do her graduate masters, and she worked on connectedness, which is a big problem that we have. We've got a gazillion problems and a gazillion data sets that we can help students in terms of saying, here's something that you can go and usefully solve for the industry. We just need to find the students, we need to partner with the universities and do more and more of this. So Jess is a good example of that. And just to give her a plug, Jess is just about finished. I think she finishes in the next month or two, and is out there hunting for a job. So if anyone has a role where you want someone that's smart, that has a bit of education and training and specialist training in genetics, go and hit Jess up while she's here. And so now I'm going to come to capability in terms of our sheep evaluation science team. Danny van der Linden leads this team, or coordinates this team, and she affectionately calls it the hardcore nerds, right? So these are the people who actually really, and we mean that with all affection really, because they are the people who actually do the real genetics for us. Right now, or until recently, running this team is what I call the three wise men. So Michael Lee, who most of you know, Ken Dodds from BSI, and Neville Jopson, who I'm sure you all know as well. And they've been running this team. And we do have a challenge though, right? So with all due respect to these men, they're all 60 plus. And we can't afford to leave our sheep industry's genetic gain in the future without a succession plan coming through for those three wise men. We do have what I call the young guns. So Timothy Bilton from BSI is now working as part of that team, and Timothy's a very smart guy. And Franzi Vike, who works in our team, has primarily been working on beef stuff, but we are going to sort of shift her gradually into some sheep stuff as well. And so we've got the young guns. But what we don't have, there's a 30-year gap between top row and the bottom row there, right? And we really desperately need to fill that gap in the middle. And we've actually been these people are really hard to find and even harder to employ. So we've been searching for about 3 years to try and work out how we can fill this gap. And I'm really pleased to say, just recently, we've found someone and they've signed a contract to come and work for us. I can't actually tell you who it is right now because, well, I won't go into why. But we have found someone, and they will be, that's a mid-career researcher, Kiwi, so wants to come back to New Zealand because of, I guess, the way the world's going, and basically, and to be closer to family. So we have been able to plug the middle order. I would like 3 people or 5 people in the middle order, but one's a great start. So I really regard that as a victory in terms of this development of capability to make sure that we can keep our genetics program running as well as we can. Right, so the third one was Unleash Genomics, and Rob's already introduced that really well. And in essence, unleashing genomics is really about expanding the breeding objectives, so tackling some traits that we can't measure or that we don't measure well or don't do enough of, and being able to do that and use genomic selection for those, what we call the hard to measure traits. It's also a bit about going faster for the other traits, but we've already sort of given you the ability to do that in the analysis. So I think what we're really concentrating on now is these hard to measure traits. And what Rob and Pete's review really pointed out to us was that essentially our current strategy is putting a choke around genomics for those sort of traits. So what do I mean by that? Well, essentially our current strategy is unplanned at an industry level, and it's essentially, well, we're just going to rely on breeders to invest, and we're going to sort of hope that people do. And actually what we'll do to make sure that they do is we'll make sure that only the people who invest can get the results, because that's fair, right? Because why would you invest for all your competitors, because we're all cooperative competitors in this room, right? Why would you invest so that your competitor gets all the benefit and you take all the cost in your business? So we've sort of put these, we call them restricted traits. So for facial eczema, for example, which is a classic one, we'll only give you the breeding values if you meet certain criteria in terms of measuring the trait. The trouble is that undermines the whole point of genomics. So the whole point of genomics, especially for these hard to measure traits, is to get a strategic reference population that we sort of design and know where we're going. And then we can spread the benefits as wide as possible. But our rules do exactly the opposite, right? There's nothing strategic about it. We say, well, we hope some people are going to measure these things, and actually we're going to restrict the results. So we need to solve that problem. But it comes back to that fairness of investment that Rob was talking about before, as to how we're going to do it. So we're going to have to change the investment model. And trust me when I say we are completely and utterly respectful of data ownership for all the data that you go out and collect and all the hard work that breeders do. So that needs to remain an absolutely key principle, and yet we've also got to work out how we can harness this technology much more effectively for the good of the New Zealand sector, to be honest, but also, yeah. This is actually the graph that I was referring to earlier when I stood up and answered that question, where we've got a few flocks that are doing whole flock genomics in New Zealand maternal worth, and that's the ones in the top line, and then there's the all flocks progress, and we would love the all flocks progress to, has this got a pointer? Maybe not. We would love the all flocks line to meet the genomics line, or even to go at 1.5 faster than the genomics line. That would be a vision that we could work to for the future, and that's the sort of economics that we're sort of trying to achieve here. So it's about enabling these hard to measure traits, so broadening the breeding objective, making sure we can deal with some things effectively that we are currently struggling with, and also accelerating that gain. So Vision 35 is the three bits that Alan talked about in terms of a program. It was farm systems and extension, and genomics, and then parasites. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more detail about the genomics one, because that's the one that all you in this room are really the key to unlocking this. And there's sort of, within that, we've got a few different work streams, right? So we actually need to work out what is the investment model, which is fair for everyone, and allows us to capture the benefit of genomics and to spread that benefit as wide as we possibly can for the good of the industry. And in essence, to paraphrase what Rob was talking about, that's going to mean the industry, either through a commercial model eventually, but in the meantime through a program like this, paying people to measure more of these hard-to-measure traits. So, for example, facial eczema would be probably the number one trait that I have as a target, and parasites is number two. For the people who are willing to measure facial eczema, can we actually pay them to measure more on the understanding that we can use that data for the benefit of the whole industry rather than just for the benefit of their breeding program? So that's essentially the principle that we need to work towards. I'm well aware that this is a significant mindset shift that the industry will need to take, and that we need to have a lot of chat and discussion and I guess making sure that we're not undermining the roles that you already have and the investment that you already have. This is not about destroying the ram breeding sector, right, and turning the industry upside down. It's about working with the sector that we have to go faster. And there's a workshop that Rob's leading later on, but I'll be as part of it, where we can have some of the, I guess, in a more smaller group discussion about some of that. And this discussion is going to go on for quite some time as we sort of work out what that model needs to be. As part of this program, we also need to upgrade our genomic infrastructure to deal with this. And there's a bunch of stuff that we're going to have to do in terms of analysis, but also in terms of the IT systems, even be able to track ownership and intellectual property around phenotypes that we might collect. So there's a heap of work to be done in there. As part of that, we also want to revise some of our genomic trait models and make sure that we're delivering the best and most accurate breeding values that we can. It'll be great if we can actually get some data quality standards that we get implemented in this as well. This is a slide that I've thrown in because I'm really interested in how we could use artificial intelligence, so not artificial insemination, but artificial intelligence in all of this. And so I actually used AI to make this slide. I used it to make the previous one as well. And there's a bunch of ways that we can use AI, I think, and this is just my little brainstorm, as to what we could use AI for. So we could use it for outlier detection, so detecting anomalies in our data in a more automated sort of way. We could use it for breeding structure and data design, so maybe running across and having a look at some of the things, the way the breeding program is constructed, and, for example, have we brought out a connecting sire and used them 3 weeks ahead of our own sires and then sort of destroyed the value of that connecting sire, as an example of an issue that we could be using AI to help us make sure we don't do some of the things that undermine our data collection. We could actually use it for animal measurement itself, and there's people out there doing this right now or developing this right now to enhance the trait recording. We might even be able to use it within the genetic engine itself. That's still a work in progress, and we are not going to be on the bleeding edge of that. But as that may or may not happen, and we'll see how that happens, we need to be aware of the possibility, at least, that might be a way that genetic evaluations start going. And then we can use it for extension and advisory in different ways, and decision support. AI is not the ultimate fix-all tool at the moment, right? It's going to get better. It's never going to be worse than what it is today. But you'll notice on this slide that it actually put decision support up there twice. It misspelt unusual over in the within genetic evaluation thing. And then, as someone else pointed out to me yesterday, it turned that sheep in the top right corner into a cyclops with one eye, right? So we've got to be a little bit careful at the same time. We can't just let it loose and just trust everything that it says straight away. But we also need to be conscious of the opportunity that it gives us. Now, this comes to the reference population part of what we need to do. And right now, these are really the 5 hard to measure traits, really difficult to measure, really difficult to implement on your own farm for a variety of reasons, that we would have as our targets within that. And number one would be facial eczema resistance, which, as we all know, is really going to be a critical threat, especially for sheep farming in the North Island, but also moving further south of the time. And equally so, parasite resistance, as triple drench resistance, etc., hits us. We need to find the genetic ways to do this and to make this go faster than we already are. Meat quality is a significant opportunity for the industry, and of course that's hard to measure too because you have to kill the animals. So there's ways that we need to tackle that. And then the last two I sort of see as two sides of the same coin, right? But feed efficiency and methane, and I'm really adamant that we need to do the feed efficiency part alongside the methane so that we can actually know and understand what's happening to our feed intake and feed efficiency. So they would be the number one targets that we've got in mind at the moment for these hard to measure traits, and where we need to really lean into designing our reference populations rather than just hoping they happen. In terms of development of future traits, that will be part of where we want to go, and probably the number one need that we see at the moment is it would be really great if we had a live animal ultrasound measure of marbling that was integrated into our genomic evaluation and that we could do a better job of. We've taken a baby step towards that at the moment in terms of assessing some scanners who are doing a visual assessment of their when they eye muscle scan and giving a score to marbling, but that's not going to be the long-term answer. The reason being is that they all use different approaches and technologies. Not every scanner that we assessed was up to our level of accuracy that we needed, and so we actually need to develop this as a technology so it's not dependent on our operator, but it's actually dependent on the technology, and that we can do this and roll it out much more widely. And then after that, there'll be some other traits that we want to investigate as well. And some of those traits are already being investigated by the likes of BSI, working with Focus Genetics in their program. The name of that program escapes me just at the moment, but it shouldn't because I'm on the advisory group for it, but it has. Then finally, we need to do a much better job of our engagement and extension implementation. And actually, I think we need to put more effort even before we do extension, because extension's a word that sort of assumes that we know more than you, but actually that's not the case. It's more engagement and discussion, right? So we need to spend more time getting out, and so Sarah has a plan for us to get around and have sort of more what we're going to call woolshed workshops or something like that. Just make ourselves available, have some structure around it, talk about the things that you want us to talk about, not what we want to talk about. Well, actually, we might talk about some of the things that we want to talk about too, but make sure it's a conversation and essentially, have more engagement with you as breeders, but also with the breeders who aren't here, right? So the people who come here are the top segment. It's quite difficult to start reaching the people who are the next sort of tier out. So we actually need the help of you in this room, that if we say we're going to make ourselves available and we're going to come to a woolshed, that you actually help us to get along your colleagues, and just increase that engagement. We don't need a crowd of 50 people or anything like that, but we really do want to increase our engagement because we learn a lot from those engagements, and hopefully at the very minimum you get to make some points to us. Maybe you might learn something too. So I'll just finally finish by a couple of things. So our Cool Sheep program we've just had that extended for another 12 months, or parts of it extended for another 12 months. But what it's achieved in the last 3 years is 17,000 methane measurements. It was really instrumental behind the shift that we did when version 6 was released about a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half, which was a step change that Michael Lee led in terms of the way we actually process our genotypes. And it was only a mathematical change, but it made a big difference. We had been heading down the route where we thought we needed to put terminal sheep into one genomic evaluation, maternal sheep into another, because they weren't compatible under the old technology that we're using. And that was going to create a whole lot of problems for us and meant we were running 2 evaluations and all that sort of thing. What this program enabled us to do was bring together both of them in a step change in technology and a step change in the maths behind the system. We have created a methane BV, we have created an emissions index. These are voluntary things that you can choose to use, you don't have to use them. With genotypes 700 plus sires, we actually have budget to do probably twice that many, or 3 times that many. But surprisingly, maybe not everyone was taking the opportunity to genotype their sires. There's been a bunch of extension things created, and improved tracker, which I'll come to in a minute. So we do have funding to continue with 2 parts of the program. One is more methane measurements, but the other one, which is really critical, is that BSI is going to be funded to do more feed intake measurements alongside the methane sheep that they have. And so I can't emphasise enough how critical I think it is that we think about both sides of that coin, and that actually we can actually achieve both as well together. So finally, improved tracker, which is something you're going to hear more about in a workshop later today, I think, or maybe it's a talk, I can't quite remember. But improved tracker is something that we're actually releasing today or now, and it's a tool for, not really for you, it's for your clients. So for commercial farmers, not for ram breeders. And what this tool basically does is say, based on the rams that I've used in the last however many years, what's the expected BV of my flock? So not of individual animals, but of my flock. Where is my flock average sitting at for whatever BV that we currently produce in our system? And, you know, that could be transformational. You know, just imagine if all your clients had a really good knowledge of exactly where they sat in terms of their existing flock and the genetics in them. So it would help in ram selection. It would, sorry, I'm going to go back. It would help in ram selection because you'd be able to then talk to them and work out, okay, this is where you are now. What traits do you need to prioritise? I'm sure you already have those conversations, right, when they come, but this will be a conversation based on information on where you are now, not just, oh yeah, I think I'm pretty good for growth, but I need a bit more reproduction, right? It'll be, oh, actually, I'm sitting at this level for growth, and this level for reproduction, and this level for facial eczema. Where's my next gain? And I think that could transform the conversation. It's going to help them think about genetics and think about the value that your rams are adding to their system and the value of buying a good ram or a not so good ram, because it becomes really obvious when you start doing the numbers. I think from commercial farmers' point of view, having that information is also going to be really useful from a farm management, farm systems diagnosis point of view, right? So if I want to improve my scanning percentage, because I think I'm year on year scanning about 170%, but I want to be at 185%, for example. So right now, it's quite hard to work out where, you know, what I need to change to do that. But if I know that my genetics are at this level, and that other people with the genetics at the same level are already doing 185, well, it's not my genetics that needs to change, it's actually my management. I just need to become a better manager or do a few strategic things, right? But it might be the other way around too. It might be actually, in terms of where I'm sitting with my genetics right now, I'm maxing out, thanks Sarah, maxing out where I'm sitting for my genetics, and actually to take the next step, I do need to buy a better ram or better ram team. So I think that's going to be really useful. Ultimately, I'd love to see this turn into how do we value our capital stock? So just like the dairy industry, you know, when dairy industry buys and sells a herd, They talk about production worth and breeding worth, and those numbers are available on their herd, and then people will pay for those animals based on what their genetics are. If we could have that, just imagine if when someone got out of the business or retired or succession or whatever, and you had a New Zealand maternal worth on your flock, and we made the genetic value of those animals much more transparent to people who might buy them. You know, right now we say, oh, you know, they're Romneys and they've been buying rams from the stud or whatever, which is about as good a proxy as we can get, or is what the agents know at the moment. But if we could actually say, yep, this is their New Zealand maternal worth and this is their worth for all these other traits, you know, can we build that into the capital value of our flocks? So that's essentially what Improved Tracker will do. The how and all the detail behind that, I'm going to leave for Sarah and David and the team to explain in a later session. But I'll just leave it there, Paul, and invite any questions if we've got any time left.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, we do have some questions, and some of these, look, I will have to put into the parking lot, but I'll go from the top down. So can we start by measuring for FE on or in the CPT flocks?
Yeah, we are thinking about that. There's some reasons why we haven't. So one is that we're under animal ethics for all these things, although the Animal Ethics Committee, I think, is becoming more persuaded of the view that we can do this for the greater good. But the other one is that measuring FE obviously means dosing animals, and then that can compromise a lot of the other traits that we currently measure. So we would actually have to redesign the CPT a little bit so that we've got surplus animals that we just measure, or that we essentially measure facial eczema on, and then don't measure anything else later in life on because those animals have been compromised. So it's something we're thinking about, but yeah, there are some challenges around that.
Okay, just one more, and we'll just have to put the rest into the parking lot if you can. Thank you.
Which one?
The one with the most likes. So we'll go, if collaboration is the goal, are we working with all the other groups well enough, i.e. Zoetis, NextGen, and meat companies, etc.? Yeah,
look, that's a really good point. There is always room for improvement, right? And I think we can improve on that. And you know, it's also on everyone's initiative to improve on that. So yes, collaboration, it does happen. Would I ever say we're perfect in it? Absolutely not. So yes, we need to do a bit more of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Please show our appreciation for Jason.